Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Pasadena Chamber of Commerce's State of Disruption, How Industry is Tackling Adversity today. We're so excited to have you join us again for one of our exceptional events. My name is Melinda Torreson, and I will be one of the hosts in the conversation that we're going to have this morning. I serve as the president of Motor Staffing Services and have the privilege of serving as the Pasadena Chamber's 2020 chairman of the board this year. So welcome. We look forward to the presentation that we're going to have with Hector. And of course, y'all can see the panelists that have joined us this morning. So we have some exceptional people that are going to be hosting and having conversation today. So it is interesting to note that, you couldn't have predicted that we would be in a global pandemic this time last year. And I just want to point out, I think, Hector, you remember having conversation with Christina maybe this time last year as we were talking about our 2020 resource guide, the magazine that the Pasadena Chamber publishes every year. And we really wanted to highlight industry and what industry brings to not only the city of Pasadena, but to the region and the state of Texas and really to the world. And so I just want to make a note that thank you for giving a thumbs up that we were doing the right thing by actually highlighting industry and putting industry on the cover of the Pasadena Chamber's resource guide and magazine, and really diving into the products that come from our ship channel and our industry. So I'm just super excited that we actually did a feature on industry, that we highlighted industry too at our State of the City. I believe that was the last event that we actually hosted in person back in February. And we heard from, some of our major industry folks along the ship channel. So I just think it's so fitting that you're here with us this morning, Hector. And of course, we have Roger with the Port of Houston. But it's our privilege and honor to be able to partner with industry. And of course, I know we have a lot of folks online this morning who are from industry. So we've been able to, not only with the resource guide and magazine that we have, but also our Discover Pasadena, which was another new and innovative idea and concept that we came up with and had launched this year. And of course, we've taken it from doing in-person interviews to we have gone online and to be able to share good news. And so we believe that all of you who are online are part of our good news stories, as well as the panelists that we have here today. So I do want to give a special thanks to Dennis Winkler and to you, Chad Burke. I see you up there. Thank you so much for joining with us as just key partners with ECMA, and of course, Chad with the Economic Alliance, the Houston Port region. So we just so appreciate you, and don't just consider you partners, but you really are just those special friends. And so thank you for taking the time to join with us. We do want to just make a note, as all of you have become really used to the last 9 weeks doing all these virtual Zooms and webinars, that feel free to share your questions in the Zoom chat. We're going to have a little bit of time at the end of Hector's presentation to have a little bit of Q&A. So we would love to know what's on your mind and to hear the questions that you have for Hector. So please feel free to, again, jump in the Zoom chat and share that. So we do want to go ahead and hand the mic over to you, Roger. And so it's my pleasure to introduce Roger Guenther, which I know all of you who are online are probably very familiar and are, have that relationship with Roger, and of course the Port of Houston. So thank you so much, Roger, for joining us and being a presenting sponsor. That's why I love always hearing Chad and of course Hector just giving highlights to the Port of Houston and how significant the Port of Houston is to us, and really what a privilege it is for us to have the Port of Houston in our backyard. So Roger, if there's a few words that you want to share, please feel free to jump in, and thanks again for being with us.
Well, thank you. It's a privilege for me, and we're glad to be able to sponsor this. And I think it's important for everybody in our region to know how our port's doing. And the port is the engine, economic engine for our region. I certainly look forward to what Hector has to say, on the petrochemical and oil and gas side of the business. But I can talk a little bit about what's going on. And of course, there are interesting times to say the least. Lots transpired over the last couple of months. And Port Houston and our public facilities, we certainly haven't been isolated from the coronavirus, but our business hasn't stopped. And we can't stop. The port cannot stop. It's the essential goods that we needed early on, all the medical supplies and people waiting in line at Walmart for the food and water and all these things that we need, come through our port in some shape or form, and we have to stay open. And the supply chain is what drives the economy of not only this region, but the state and the nation. And I have to highlight, there's a lot of heroes out there that have made that happen. I've been able to telecommute, and we shut our business down, not our business, our office building down, and got people out of harm's way that could telecommute. But 2/3 of our employees show up every day. You're talking about our maintenance people, our longshoremen that load and unload ships, our emergency response people, the Houston pilots bringing the ships in and out every day, the truckers showing up to receive and deliver the cargo. We have to stay open, and it's those people that need a shout out who get it done every day. And I'm proud of what our whole port community has done to keep this moving and keep this channel moving in many instances when it could have been worse. Now we're not without disruption. Early on, you may know, soon in the very early stages of this, we got some cases of COVID-19, and we weren't prepared for it, to be honest with you. We had to shut the port down because we had 3 cases that hit us. We had no idea who they had contact with. And I made the toughest decision I think I've ever made, but it was the right one, and it was the only one. Hey, let's shut this port down before we spread it further. And in 24 hours, we were back up and running. That was the best thing that ever happened to us. I think for us, other industry partners, as well as other ports, because it really made us understand what we needed to do to keep our port safe and running. So we were able to do that. We've since implemented guidelines to keep our employees safe so we can keep cargo going through. Some of the things that we're doing, some of we're screening everybody that comes in and out of the port, all of the workers, temperature screens. That doesn't prevent anything, but it certainly gives a better comfort level that people are coming in and being safe. We're doing a lot more with PPE requirements, disinfecting our common areas and making it a better environment for our employees. So here we are, a couple of months into it. We got through that. We hadn't had any more cases. I think it's partly some of the things that we've done that we've been able to isolate and reduce some of the spread of the coronavirus within our own port. But we're still busy. I said we haven't stopped, even though our volume's down a little bit. The cargo keeps coming through the port. It's pretty much business as usual. I tell our people every day, all of our employees, that our strategies and goals don't change. It's only the environment that we're working in that changes. People have been watching Survivor, and they talk about expect the unexpected. You can't expect what's not expected, but you can accept what's unexpected and have plans to keep forward going with us. And that's what we're doing. Our goals of infrastructure and people and stewardship and partnerships like we're doing today. We think it's important to partner with our community to make sure that they know what we're doing. So we continue on. We got capital projects out there that we're preparing for, because when this bounces back, the port's going to thrive. I'm convinced of it. So we have to continue to have the infrastructure in place to do it. Just a bit, people may want to know, we haven't laid off anybody, by the way. All of our people are still working, and we're fortunate of that because, again, our work hasn't stopped. Our container volume's down a little bit. In March, it was down 11%. April was down 12%. We think that's kind of the norm for the next month or two, as far as we can tell. But overall, we had a strong January and February, so our volume's actually up 5% after 4 months of this year, which is incredible. One last thing, and and again, I'll be around for later, but I want to mention we're moving forward. The one thing that's been on everybody's mind in and around the Houston Ship Channel region for the last year or two is the channel project, the deepening and widening project, and I can assure you that remains a priority for us. We're working very hard, and the steps are being made. We just got the chief's report from the Corps of Engineers, which was a huge step. Now it's going to be in front of Congress in a Water Resources Development Act bill to get us the authorization to do this. We have already committed to doing the design. The Port Authority is going to do the design for the Corps to expedite this. And I'm confident that we're going to start construction in, I'm going to say for sure, and for sure is a big word, in 2021, but I'm hoping for fairly early in 2021. That's our goal, is to get this dirt moving so that we can continue to handle the size of ships that this is a short-term issue. This isn't a long-term issue for our port. So anyway, I could go on, but I really appreciate you giving me a few minutes to talk about our port, and it's everybody that's on this webinar's port, in my opinion, and we appreciate being a sponsor for this, and thanks for having us.
Thank you so much for sharing, Roger. Definitely appreciate the facts, and I know what's top of mind on everybody's, what they're thinking about is the widening of the ship channel. And so really kudos to our friend Chad, who is always, talking about the port and talking about the widening of the ship channel. And just really appreciate everything you do. And just really appreciate you, Roger, for acknowledging the superheroes like you did earlier. But I will make a note. Superheroes are only superheroes if they have really strong and solid leaders. So thank you for your leadership at the Port of Houston and everything that you do, and just really a shout out to you and all of the individuals, all the employees who work at the port. And so thankful too to hear that there haven't been any layoffs as well. So that's good news. So thank you again.
Well, thank you, Melinda.
Key partners that you should be able to see on your screen right now. We do want to acknowledge our diamond level members, which is a new level that we have initiated here at the Pasadena Chamber of Commerce. And we do want to highlight, of course, Port of Houston is one of our key diamond members, along with some of our other industry partners with CP Chem and, of course, Chevron. And then you can see our other diamond level members with Phelps Insurance, the Serrano Insurance Agency, and Miles Service. And we do want to acknowledge too our platinum members, which when you see them come up on the screen, there's again a lot of industry partners. You'll see their names up there. And so thank you so much to our industry partners, along with everybody else, the contractors and everybody who helps support this great community and the region that we're a part of. And so with that being said, I want to pass the baton over to my friend Dennis Winkler, who you can see up there at the top. And just consider Dennis not only a friend, but just really a significant and very influential person that we have the pleasure of working with and knowing here in our community. So it's my pleasure to pass the baton over to our friend Dennis Winkler, who not only runs a very successful business, but is serving right now, thankfully, as the interim executive director for our great partner, ECMA. So Dennis, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Linda, thank you very much. My role is a important but brief one here this morning, and that's to introduce Hector Rivero, who is our speaker today. Hector is a business leader in Texas, a successful legislative strategist who currently serves as president and CEO of the Texas Chemical Council and Association of Chemical Industry of Texas. The chemical industry in Texas generates more than $2 billion in state and local taxes and accounts for more than 500,000 Texas jobs. Hector is a UT graduate, lives in Austin, has 2 children, including a son at Texas A&M University. Hector advocates for a chemical industry which creates products that make our modern world better. And he will share with us a few shining examples from the past 2 months during this pandemic. I personally am proud to work in this industry, and I'm honored to work with this respected leader. Please welcome Hector Rivero.
Thank you very much, Dennis. It's an honor to be with you. Let me say the honor is mine to be able to work with you and the incredible job you've done leading ECMA as interim director. We're just so proud of all the work that you're doing and the incredible relationship we have with ECMA. Christina, thank you for inviting me to speak to the Pasadena Chamber of Commerce during these remarkable times that have really changed our way of life as we know it. It's been a really crazy 3 months, and there's no question that we find ourselves in a state of pandemic or a state of disruption regarding the pandemic. I'm honored to have the opportunity to share a little bit about how the business of chemistry is tackling adversity and playing an important role during the COVID-19 pandemic, providing basic raw materials for the production of health, hygiene, and safety products, and including things like personal protective equipment. Hopefully everybody has their PPE, taking care of your stuff. But also industry is making a lot of life-saving supplies, medical supplies for those on the front lines. So before I get rolling with the presentation, I want to make sure that people are familiar with who TCC and ACIT are. Chemical Council represents 70 companies that own and operate some 200 manufacturing and research facilities across the state, and directly employ over 75,000 Texans and rely on another 400,000 people that work in and around an industry to keep us successful. Our mission is to create a globally competitive environment for the chemical industry in a manner that's positive for the state of Texas and the people of Texas. In addition, we represent the Association of Chemical Industry of Texas. This includes contractors, suppliers, vendors, and other service providers that really are spend their days working at chemical plants and are vital to the success of our industry and therefore our strong economy. I also wanted to point out, I appreciated Roger's comments. The Port Houston has been a mainstay, and the leadership that Roger and the commissioners have demonstrated to keep the port operational is critical, because we wouldn't be able to continue operating if we didn't have the Port of Houston there to get our products to customers around the globe. So thanks to Roger and his team for the incredible job that they're doing as well. You know, as we talk about the state of disruption, you know, over 7.5 billion people around the world will forever remember the coronavirus pandemic, its rapid spread, and the devastating impact it's had on our society and the health of our global economy. People across the globe have experienced loss of life, loss of jobs, and loss of businesses. In times like these, people are struck with strong emotions caused by fear, uncertainty, and doubt. As a society, we realize that we are stronger together, and people are demonstrating their ability to adapt, to be agile, to be strong, and to genuinely care and help one another. This is the spirit of humanity that has brought the world together to survive and to fight to regain our quality of life that I know we all want so desperately. So that's really the backdrop of what's going on. And I can tell you that, you know, I first heard about the coronavirus pandemic back in, you know, October, November, when it hit in Asia. And I, like many people, probably dismissed it thinking, oh, this is something going on in Asia. It's never going to affect me. It's never going to affect the United States. It's never going to change my world. And we went on about our way. But that kind of changed in January. The United States had its first case diagnosed on January 21st. And the number of cases started to escalate. We had our first death on March 1st of this year in the US. And then the number of cases and the number of deaths continued to escalate. Globally, the virus has impacted over 5 million people and taken over 300,000 lives, which is incredible to think that just after 5 months of hearing, or 7 months of hearing about a virus, that we would find ourselves in the circumstances that we are. In the US, we have 1.5 million cases that have been diagnosed and over 90,000 deaths associated with the virus. And in Texas, over 50,000 cases with over 1,400 deaths. Just wanted to put it in perspective. I know we all watch the news and are keeping up with these totals. These are as of close of business yesterday. But a little perspective, the mortality rate based on these numbers for the US is at about 6%. And by comparison, in Texas, we're below 3% mortality, which shows that we're doing something right in Texas. And with the strong leadership of Governor Abbott and all the efforts by industry and others to to practice social distancing and stay safe. I thought it'd also be important to really help tell this story by using a timeline that I created here that is essentially a timeline of all the declarations and orders that we saw that really kind of started setting the pace for the pandemic. On March 13th, Governor Abbott announced the emergency disaster, declared an emergency disaster, which paved the way for the state to start to receive federal funding. And it also sent a signal across our state that things were going to change and that we were going to have some pretty significant impacts. On the 19th of March, the governor signed Executive Order GA8. It was one of the first orders, probably one of the most significant orders, that prohibited social gathering of more than 10 people. He closed our public schools. He closed our restaurants, bars, and gyms. And the order also prohibited people from being able to visit their own loved ones in nursing homes. And I think that really shook all of our communities and shook all of our way of life. On the 22nd of March, the governor created a supply chain strike force to basically start ramping up the things that we would need in order to fight and respond to the virus. Things for our emergency responders, for the frontline healthcare workers, and an incredible job that the state has done in trying to prepare. The governor made it very clear that he was going to leave it up to local counties to make determinations on orders and restrictions. With 254 counties in the state, the governor didn't want small, rural, low population counties to adhere to mandates or restrictions that were really designed for larger metropolitan areas like Houston or Dallas. And so we started to see counties prepare and issuing orders. Harris County issued their stay-at-home order on March 24th. And obviously this created a little bit of work for us because everyone on this call was probably impacted by that stay-at-home order. We had to ensure that the Harris County order included recognition of critical infrastructure such as the chemical sector so that our companies can continue to operate, our plants can continue to produce the PPE and other products, and that our essential workers could continue to safely travel to and from work without any kind of hindrance or obstruction. So we actually spent a great deal of time working with Harris County, but not just Harris County, but with many other counties. The chemical industry is one of the nation's critical infrastructure sectors in the fight against coronavirus. Our member companies are ramping up production of products to ensure a safe and abundant food supply, safe drinking water, and perhaps most significantly during this current crisis, to address the surging demand on health and safety products. So we had to make sure that our sector was not only in the orders passed by Harris County, but a number of key counties that were critical to, that had industry assets that were critical. And so we actively engaged with county judges and county commissioners in each of these counties to ensure that there was consistent recognition of critical infrastructure sectors like us. Now, I get asked a lot, where do these critical infrastructure sectors come from? How did they come about? And it all started with Presidential Policy Directive 21. This is a national policy to strengthen our and maintain a secure and resilient critical infrastructure for the country. Under Presidential Policy Directive 21, the Department of Homeland Security, working with CISA, or the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, that's a mouthful, they identified and established 16 critical infrastructure sectors whose assets are vital to the national security, to our national economy, and to the national public health and safety. These sectors include, as I mentioned, the chemical sector, commercial facilities, communication sectors, critical manufacturing, dams, defense, emergency services, energy, financial services, food and agriculture, government, healthcare and public health, information technology, nuclear and waste, transportation systems, and finally, water and wastewater systems. All of these have been vital in the fight against the pandemic, and thank God that we had these CISA guidelines in place. In addition to naming these sectors, CISA developed a set of guidelines for essential workers that would help ensure the safety of those workers as they continue to work at these facilities. So back to our timeline, there was a lot of work that had to take place to make sure that our facilities could continue to operate. The governor on the 24th of March also called for an increase in PPE supply, which obviously our industry played a significant role on, and I'm going to talk a little bit about. A couple of other things happened that I think really woke people up. On the 26th of March, the governor put in place Executive Order GA-11 that essentially required that any air travelers coming from the city of New Orleans or from the tri-state area in greater New York would have to self-quarantine before they could actually do anything in the state of Texas. Well, we didn't really think that that directly impacted industry, but it created a little confusion for commuters traveling between Texas and Louisiana. We worked with the governor's office and the Department of Emergency Management to make sure that essential workers wouldn't be impacted. But then on the 29th of March, the governor expanded this by creating border checkpoints that would apply to all travelers coming in from Louisiana, and with the requirement of 14-day quarantine. This obviously posed a concern. Again, we worked with the governor's office and TDEM. We created a credential that our members were able to share with their employees, a placard that they could use had they been stopped by law enforcement. They could demonstrate this in order to be able to continue safe passage to and from work for the many people that we have that work between Texas and Louisiana. We have people that live in Louisiana and work in Texas facilities, and we also have Texas workers that live in that work at Louisiana chemical manufacturing sites there. So we appreciate the governor and TDEM working with us to ensure safe passage for essential workers. Now, the governor made this all right on the 31st of March. He basically instituted a statewide adoption of the CISA critical infrastructure sectors and the CISA guidelines for essential workers. So that kind of made the world a better place. So I want to shift now and talk a little bit about how industry has tackled adversity, as our title shows, and what we've done to respond during the virus. The business of chemistry manufactures thousands of chemicals and materials that improve and sustain our quality of life. These include a wide range of innovative products critical in the fight against the coronavirus. Chemicals and cleaning for cleaning and disinfection, as well as safety and protection and personal protective equipment. Remember, I told you I've got my PPE for my can at least with me. But we're talking about things like biocides, sanitizers, disinfectants, and a variety of other cleaning products. But also our industry manufactures safety and protection equipment and materials for PPE, materials for medical gloves and gowns, pharmaceuticals, as well as packaging to keep our food safe. And boy, we definitely care and think a lot more about that today than we did, 6 months ago. I think about it every time I go into the grocery store. I really pay attention to all the things that our members make that keep our food supply safe and enable us to be able to continue on. The first thing that we had to do as an industry is to make sure that we had a set of best practices to ensure the protection of our workers and also to prevent the spread of the virus at any manufacturing facilities. We did this by compiling information from all of our member companies, and we put together a laundry list. And this is just a small sample, a laundry list of best practices that we shared with across the industry, not only to our owners, but also to our suppliers and our contractors. We wanted to make sure that we had good practices in place. I'm proud to know I've learned that from our member companies that our best practices ended up at chemical plants across the world as they started introducing these practices to protect their employees. Things like activating their emergency plans, segregation of their non-essential workers using telework or telecommuting, increased sanitation and disinfection at the sites, PPE, of course, which has always been a presence at all chemical manufacturing facilities, but instituting social distancing as well as modifying shift rotations to make sure that we can minimize the number of people that had to be at a site to keep everything operational. So a really important element that has proven successful in minimizing the spread of infection at our facilities. The Chemical Council has been actively engaged with the state of Texas, the Department of Emergency Management, as well as the State Operations Center. Since the beginning of the pandemic, we have had staff that have participated on the daily conference calls, keeping our members informed of all of the needs from the Department of Health and Human Services and the Department of Emergency Management. And we've been coordinating and responding with the state to address needs and concerns that have been out there. Those calls have now dropped down from 7 days a week to just 2 days a week, but we continue to monitor every call so that we can keep our members informed. Personal protective equipment, as we've discussed, has been a really important issue that has been featured in all the news. Medical face masks made of polyethylene or polypropylene, polystyrene, or polyester non-woven materials has been in high demand. Also, rubber and spandex that's used to keep the masks on the faces has been important. We've had companies that have really stepped up. ExxonMobil has increased their polypropylene production sufficient enough to create 200 million masks a month. That is a significant contribution. And then we've had small companies like Braskem that did something unique. They had 40 employees commit to a 28-day live-in rotation at their site to increase production of polypropylene. These people didn't see their families for 28 days so that they can help and give back and make sure that our emergency responders and healthcare workers had masks to be able to do things. Medical garments, surgical gowns made of polypropylene and polyethylene, non-woven materials. These have liquid barriers that protect the healthcare workers from any kind of liquids, whether it's blood or anything else that may be dealt with in an emergency room setting to protect the healthcare workers that are there. Again, ExxonMobil's polypropylene production helped contribute about 20 million gowns a month, surgical gowns a month. So really tremendous. And then Tyvek, we all know about Tyvek and the different products. We've probably seen the Tyvek coveralls that are featured at many of the testing facilities. DuPont that makes Tyvek went entering into a partnership with the Department of Health and Human Services, FEMA, and FedEx to ensure that 500,000 coveralls, Tyvek coveralls, were distributed every week to hospitals and medical professionals across the country. So really a positive story about how we've been able to help the fight. Medical gloves are made of latex or nitrile or polyvinyls. There's been an increased demand for these materials, and production is ramped up globally for these important materials. Face shields made of polycarbonate, acetate, and polyethylene are also high in demand. Some of these same materials you'll find at the supermarkets and also at restaurants. Bars are starting to introduce them, and retail stores. And you'll get to see a lot more of these as you start to reopen our economy. They're prevalent everywhere. Well, we received a call from the governor's office several weeks ago, where there was a shortage of the plastics needed to make face shields. They reached out to us. We put out a plea to all of our member companies. Within an hour, we had 3 companies that said, we have what you need, tell us where we need to send them. And the manufacturer that was making this for the Department of Emergency Management had a supply within days to be able to keep up with production that are there. But we had a number of companies step up. Lubrizol, with a collaboration with Nike, donated Estane thermoplastic polyurethane to make the plastic shields. Eastman donated materials to make over 100,000 face shields a week. Koch Industries utilized 3D technology to help manufacture the shield visors that would hold the clear face shields on your head. And Dow Chemical developed a simplistic design that they then made available through open source to help accelerate production of face shield. So another just really positive story about how people were doing. And we've all heard about hand sanitizer. Man, what an outpouring of support by industry for hand sanitizer. The chemical industry supplies 2 key ingredients for hand sanitizers: ethyl alcohol and isopropyl alcohol. And obviously with the increased demand, many companies started repurposing their operations and started to manufacture hand sanitizer. But you can see here from the list, I won't go through in detail, but Dow, Huntsman, Exxon, LyondellBasell, BASF, Arkema, CP Chem, Chevron Phillips Chemical, and even last week, Texas Brine delivered 600 bottles of hand sanitizer to Victoria County, who had reached out to us looking for assistance. So an incredible outpouring of support by industry to stop what they're doing and help ramp up production of the things that were in high demand and need. And not to mention financial assistance. Dozens of our member companies have made financial contributions towards global response and recovery. Over $10 million that I know of from companies here in Texas that have been contributed to the cause as well. So really a really positive story that is here. The chemical value chain provides life-saving medicine, disinfectants, medical equipment, food supply, and clean drinking water, all things that we depend on, especially during a crisis like the COVID-19 pandemic. I want you to know I'm so proud of how our industry has responded in this time of need. As we now start to reopen Texas, you can see here the governor announced the strike force that he created on April 17th. He announced his report, Reopen Texas, on April 27th with introducing phase 1 and 2. As y'all know, phase 1 started on May 4th, reopening restaurants and movie theaters with 25% maximum capacity and establishing retail to go to reopen our shopping centers. On May 5th, the governor extended the phase 1 to apply to barbershops and hair salons that started up on May 8th. And then just this Monday, we had phase 2 start up that expanded capacity at restaurants and movie theaters up to 50% and opened it up to gyms and non-essential manufacturing as well as commercial businesses. So we're well on our way to reopen. As Texas reopens, our industry is preparing for the return of their full workforce, and other member companies, our member companies, are developing their return to work playbooks with guidelines and procedures to keep their plants and employees safe and healthy. We don't really know what the post-COVID world will look like, but TCC will remain actively engaged with state and local leaders to address issues to keep our plants running and to keep our people and our communities safe. Our industry will continue to do our part to end the pandemic and will continue to innovate and manufacture products to keep us safe and healthy. Our TCC team, I want to share with you, our staff developed a rally cry early in the pandemic when we started to meet and have our daily staff calls. And that rally cry is, "We got this." And with continued support for our industry by you, everyone on this call. We will succeed at returning to the American way of life that we all so dearly miss. And I want to thank you for letting me share this little tale with you today. And I want to remember that together we got this. So thank you. I'll turn it back over to you.
Oh, thank you so much, Hector. And of course, you know, being from Texas, that's what we've continued to hear from Governor Abbott is we got this. And if anybody can do it, it's definitely Texans, and they can shift and make things happen. And so I just really appreciate you being such an advocate for the industry and just, you know, seeing everything that industry has done to, I know there's two words that everybody's probably so tired of. It's unprecedented and pivot. But I do have to say, industry has really done an exceptional job pivoting to help Texans, you know, to help with the PPE, and just, you know, the math, everything that you listed is really exceptional. So thank you so much, Hector. And we would want to reach out to all of you who are online. I know that we've asked you guys to share any questions that you might have through the chat. So please feel free to you know, type that into the chat box. And with that being said, we are going to begin our Q&A. And it's my privilege to pass the baton over to the President and CEO of the Economic Alliance Houston Port Region, Mr. Chad Burke. So Chad, if you want to take the reins and unmute yourself and go ahead and ask the first question to Hector, that would be great.
Thank you, Melinda. And first, before question, just want to say how lucky we are in this region, this industry, to have the guys, I use that term, the individuals like Hector Rivero, Roger Guenther, and Dennis Winkler leading these organizations. Their leadership over the last 3 months has been phenomenal. Roger put out a really informative and well-spoken video early on in this when they had to shut the port down for a day. It was a day, and boy, the calls that came in when that happened were unbelievable. But immediately they addressed that situation down at the port and got the Port of Houston open and operating again. So I can't say enough about how lucky we are to have the leadership between Roger and Hector and Dennis with ECMA and TCC and the Port of Houston. So we're blessed. But with that, Hector, thanks for your comments. Roger, thanks for your comments as well and everything you're both doing. Hector, looking forward, I mean, everything that has been done to date has really been exceptional and really leading from the front. Now kind of glancing forward, as you mentioned at the close of your comments, what does that look like? What are you hearing from our owner companies, the path forward for re-engagement? I heard this morning on a phone call that contractors are now we're beginning to hear that the contractors, some deferred maintenance is coming back, and contractors are being asked to come back into the facilities where they've been kind of put on hold for the last several months. You know, owner companies or plants bringing or rotating back in non-essential personnel. How does that, what are you hearing on that front as we begin to re-engage full maintenance, eventually turnarounds, and then all of those non-essential personnel, and then those contractors coming in and out of these facilities that have been really held so safe for the last 3 months?
Sure. Well, thank you for the question, Chad. Before I say that, I wanted to comment on something you said about Roger and the port. To give you a sense, Roger, I know that was just one day of your life, but I heard about it for several days when the port shut down, from people, from manufacturers all across the country. I had folks at the American Chemistry Council saying, we got to open up the port. And so just again, appreciate the leadership that you and the port demonstrated to make sure and tackle that challenge and to get it reopened, because you are the vital artery for all the products that we manufacture and the raw materials we're bringing in. So I wanted to recognize you for that. Chad, you know, I've been talking a lot about the agility demonstrated by industry and how we've kind of repurposed and refocused, but I probably need to also recognize the incredible work of our contractors. Talk about being agile and trying to adjust to a new normal. They have been responsive. They have been concerned. They have done everything they can to make sure that they can continue to provide the services that are in need by owner companies, and be able to continue to keep their people safe as well. I know all of our companies are very anxious to get back to normalcy. And I think that as we see a lot of the return to work playbooks being issued, that there's a lot of care being taken to how not only are they going to deal with their direct employees, but how are we going to help ensure the care of all of the contractors that are going to need to come back into work. There are companies that have already announced their turnarounds, and so those are starting to start up. We have companies that are going to start to recontinue their expansion projects. And obviously they're going to do that carefully. Nobody wants to rush out there and then see a spike or a spread of the virus. So I think there is an incredible amount of care being given to gradually opening up and observing and reacting to what we're seeing. But I think everyone is anxious, owners and contractors are anxious to get back out to full capacity.
Thank you so much for sharing, Hector. Dennis, if you want to unmute yourself, and if there's a question that you have for Hector as well, please feel free to jump in.
Melinda, thank you. I'm going to do a follow-up with Hector. He mentioned best practices that the industry developed, they've also shared. Hector, can you tell us a little bit about the role that the Texas Chemical Council had in that, and how you actually helped the plants think about it and share those messages?
Sure. Well, thank you, Dennis. Obviously, this was critically important for my leadership. Our executive committee gathered quickly after everything started coming down and we started to realize the impacts it would have on facilities. I immediately asked each of my executive committee members, some very large companies that shared their sense of best practices. And then we sent out a questionnaire to all of our members and said, please share everything that you are developing to ensure the safety of your employees and the safety of your operations. There was a lot of redundancy, but we had a laundry list of over 100 different action items that would take place, including things like quarantining certain populations of your workforce to make sure you had a bench available should something drastic happen and you had infection. You'd have to replace those workers after you sanitize. Companies were being thoughtful about even having a bench of available workers to come in, or a bullpen, so to speak, to come in and fight the fight if something were to happen. So really owe it. All we did is compiled the incredible insights and foresights that many of our companies had. I was shocked to learn that how many of our member companies had developed pandemic plans before this ever happened. So again, the thoughtfulness that goes into the development of operations within the chemical industry have proved vital to help us prepare to ramp up and again, minimize the spread of the virus at these facilities that remained in operation since the pandemic hit the United States.
Wow, thanks so much for sharing, Hector. There's so many questions I know that people have, but sometimes on a group chat, they're like, I don't want to ask my question because probably nobody else wants to ask it. But trust me, you guys, you've been on too many of these Zooms. Everybody has the same question. So, and I hate to even speak this word, Hector, but I would love to know really from you and Roger, if you would like to speak to this as well. Hurricane season is upon us. So that just really kind of blows your mind to think of, okay, we've just gone through a global pandemic, which is still, impacting us. Then we have, which I know Chad speaks on so many panels the past 3 months about the oil and gas wars. So, unfortunately, Houston has a double whammy. Then we're in the Gulf Coast area and we're about to, go into hurricane season. So I would love to know from the two of you, again, Hector and Roger, just what are the conversations maybe taking place, around the table in boardrooms as we kind of begin going into this hurricane season, I can't even imagine, the magnitude if there was a hurricane to come in the Gulf Coast. So I would love to hear from you about that.
Roger, you want to go first?
Yes, I will. We had a board meeting yesterday. We passed a resolution that we're not going to have hurricane season this year. But no, and Hector mentioned, we didn't have a pandemic plan, but the thing that we do have in along the Texas coast, we have a very elaborate hurricane plan. So that structure was there to more or less deal with this issue, but we also found out real quickly there wasn't a roadmap to tell you what to do specifically with the coronavirus. So, moving into the hurricane season, I actually think, we're very well planned, for the hurricane. This is going to help us. Now things that we didn't think about doing before, we know how to telecommute now, which would have been very beneficial in the past to be able to have some of these things like we're doing today with communication with WebEx and whatnot. Now, physically, we're as prepared as we ever are. We're certainly at the mercy of Mother Nature as far as how severe and those might be. But I think as far as planning purposes, I certainly feel more comfortable than I ever did about preparing for a hurricane.
I'd echo that, Roger. It's unfortunate, and we would rather not have gone through experience, but going through this experience has really made us better. It's made us better at planning. It's made us better at lessons learned. I've got companies that are already sharing with us lessons learned from this experience so that they can plan just in case we have another pandemic, whether that's related to the coronavirus later this year or 10 years from now, if there's a different virus that hits. So clearly, I would say that the preparedness that not only went in, a lot of the preparedness that went into our pandemic plan came from our hurricane plans, our emergency response plans. And I know that companies are looking at their hurricane plans through a new lens to take into account social distancing, personal protective equipment, and ensuring the health and safety of all their workers and, more importantly, their communities that they support. Now, if Economic Alliance and the Bay Area Houston Partnership would just pass that coastal spine, then we won't have to worry about a lot of that, right, Chad?
Yeah, still working on that one.
Oh, that's so appreciate that. And I would, ask if any of you, still on the Zoom, we'd love to hear from you. If you still have questions, please feel free to put that in the chat box. And while you're doing that, I want to go ahead and pass it back over to you, Chad. And of course, you're going to take care of that initiative, right? Because Hector just, gave you the take care of that one. So, but we would love to hear, Chad, just if you want to go ahead and share updates as it pertains to the Economic Alliance.
Sure, I appreciate it. And I'll touch on three really quick points that kind of feed right into our mission. I'll talk real briefly on economic development, what's really happened because of the virus outbreak, what's going on in workforce development to support our industries, and then a couple of events that we have coming up, again, but mostly kind of information transfer events. First off, the interesting thing about this, entering into the economic shutdown, we had a little over $9 billion in our project pipeline, almost 40 projects and $9 billion. That was a high water mark for us. And that's what it was entering into March of this year. Of that, it was a normal breakdown for us. We saw about 65% of that falling in petrochemical large cap projects that continue to kind of expand our production capacity here in the Houston Port region. The next 20 or so % of that was logistics, either in the form of on the water in terminals and or on the land side in logistics, moving goods in and out of the region. It's fair to say that almost all of that project activity has been put on hold. We'll see how that develops in Q3 and Q4. But as of right now, you know, it's a real fair statement to say that everybody has unless they were mid construction has put the brakes or put at least a temporary hold on that type of activity, large cap projects that were kind of in the pipeline to be evaluated and developed in this region. We'll get more answers in Q3 and Q4 as we begin to continue to come out of that. Now, not all bad news. We have actually just in the last week and a half now, been able to announce publicly 2 of the projects that we have been part of and part of the teams working on. That are wins for the region. The first one, especially related to the Pasadena area, is the Kinder Morgan terminal project. That's about $123 million capital investment project that creates 30 new direct jobs. And again, that's Kinder Morgan. So you're talking about kind of midstream and logistics type of project, not direct manufacturing, but part of that oil and gas pipeline that we see, no pun intended there, from well to finished product. And then secondly, is another project, a smaller project, comparative to what we normally see, but Pro Citrus, which is a fruits and vegetables cold storage project that is located in Baytown. It's about a $14 million capital investment of a warehouse that will be housing imported fruits and vegetables from California and from Central and South America. That's 100 retained new jobs with 50 new direct jobs. So some good news there on both of those fronts. And we have at least one other project in the pipeline that will probably, we feel good about being announced this year. So there's still activity. It's just really on the bulk of our large cap projects, it's been put on hold temporarily. On the workforce development front, Patty Bell, our workforce development coordinator and chair of the Petrochem Works Outreach Committee, is still busy, very busy, trying to do what she can to market the careers that we have in this region, working with all of our partners. In 2020, we've had 20 events. They've obviously in-person events have been stopped, but when the COVID-19 hit and the stay-at-home orders came out, she went immediately into virtual mode. Was able to record and post on our YouTube channel the workforce development presentation that she takes to most of our high schools. And then she reached out to all of our CTE directors in the region. And then students over the last 2.5 months have been going to that site as part of their classwork to view the careers and kind of the career advice presentation that she's got there. So again, the ability to kind of shift and move on the fly there has been really good. And Patty's done a fantastic job with that. And so have all the partners there at Petrochem Works as well. Year to date, they've seen almost 3,000 contacts made. So a little behind schedule, obviously, but of that, almost 1,000 of those now are virtual contacts with classrooms uploading that and then showing it to all their classrooms. So that's pretty neat. And then finally, 2 real quick things coming up. Again, everybody wants to know what the next step is and what it looks like for the rest of the year. So our next event is our Industrial Procurement Forum webinar on June 4th. We have a panel of procurement managers that includes the Port of Houston, and then EPC firms, Clough, Burns & McDonald's, McCarthy, and Performance Contractors to talk about what they're seeing out there now, when those projects will be coming back, what type of procurement activities they're going to be going through in Q3 and Q4. So a lot of good things. We'll also have keynote speaker to give us an update on as Roger mentioned, really our #1 priority, the ship channel widening project. So that happens on June 4th. And as of today, we are hard at our 2020 Gulf Coast Industry Forum, which most of you have been part of. It's scheduled for September 17th in the Pasadena Convention Center. We are moving forward as if that will be a live event. We've got a full day's worth of speakers and panels lined up. Those include the other panelists that you're looking at here. I know Roger's on a panel, Hector's on a panel, Dennis will be moderating a panel. So we've got a good lineup already scheduled, and you'll begin to see those speaker announcements come out over the next few months. And fingers crossed we'll be able to do it in person. If not, it will go virtual like we're doing today. But we're all going to be pushing hard for an in-person Gulf Coast Industry Forum. And that's all I've got, Melinda. I appreciate the time. Again, thank you to guys like Roger and Dennis and Hector for leading the way and what y'all are doing there at the Pasadena Chamber of Commerce. We really appreciate being part of y'all's team.
Thank you, Chad. You and your leadership and your staff and your board just really do significant work, and can't wait to the procurement breakfast too. So thank you for the way that y'all just, again, pivoted and taking it virtually. It's going to be really awesome. So Mr. Winkler, I'm going to hand it over to my favorite moderator of all time. So if you want to just share just a few words as it relates to your position and your leadership over there at ECMA.
Oh, Melinda, thanks again. And I'll be quick to get us out on a timely basis. But when I was brought in, I was encouraged to help make the chemical industry a bit more visible. As Hector said, we are an industry of people, and we're people who care. So we need to demonstrate that. So before COVID-19 came around, I was actually doing a kind of a listening tour, going out and listening to community advisory panels and others. What did you want to hear from industry? So one of the things that we've done, in a couple of slides that you'll see come up in a minute, we've improved our website, particularly during COVID-19. We've had a site for the community as well as for our own members. And then we've also enhanced our social media presence. We have a upgraded Facebook page. We're actually putting information out there. Some of the stories that Hector has told, we're retelling those on this site. And then we're becoming more active on Twitter and other social media. We're Instagram as well as LinkedIn. But one of the things that I want to ask everybody to do, you asked about hurricane planning, you talked about events. Download the ECMA Community Awareness Emergency Response. That's the CARE online app. If you're wanting to know what's going on in industry, you hear a siren or you see a flare, our members will post that information on that site. And if they should have an incident or event, it will also be posted there as well. So I would ask everybody, if you haven't already, please download that so we can stay in touch with you. We can listen, but we can also share with you information when it's important. With that, I'll close out, Melinda. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dennis. And I always say, God's so super smart. He always knows the right people at the right time. And I know Hector dittos what I'm going to say. Just you are the right person to be the interim executive director for ECMA. So just really, I know on behalf of all the panelists and everybody online, thank you so much, Dennis Winkler, for everything that you do. Just high five to you, and thank you. So at this time, I'm going to pass the baton over to Christina Womack, the president and CEO of the Pasadena Chamber of Commerce. Christina.
Thanks, Melinda. And I want to say thank you to my colleagues, Chad and Dennis, for participating. When we can come together like this and collaborate across our organizations and bring members together, it certainly, I think, is beneficial to everyone. I know several of you have chatted and asked questions like, I couldn't write fast enough to get all of this information down. So all you type A's out there, don't worry, the webinar will be online. We've been recording it, and Hector graciously is going to share his presentation as well. So you can access that on the PasadenaChamber.org website. We have all of our webinars have been on there through this COVID-19 time that we have been just trying to put information out there that's relevant. And to Melinda's point, we took a position, our board of directors last year, in wanting to really partner alongside industry. And we know that organizations like ECMA and Economic Alliance provide a much needed voice for advocacy and a focus on moving projects forward. And we really felt like our role was to just try to help tell the story of the products and the end users, and educating the small business on understanding what does industry do. And so now more than ever, we've always known how important it is that the products that are made that come right here in our backyard, but just hearing about the amazing ways that industry has stepped up. We can't tell those stories enough. And so the magazine that Melinda mentioned, as well as the Discover Pasadena online talk show that was launched, really helps focus and tell that story. And I certainly want to say a thank you to Heather Bittencourt with CP Chem and ECMA, and getting all of the stories together that we were able to collaborate to help tell the average community person and the small business owner what industry does. And so it's our privilege to just partner in that way. You know, I think one of the themes in all of this is just showing that we care. And during this time, we felt at the Pasadena Chamber that our role was to really help bring the community together as a central source. You know, our purpose on a regular day is to advocate and connect our community through educating and serving our members. And that doesn't change because of coronavirus. And so the way that that's looked for us right now has been in providing community relief across our, not just Pasadena, but our region. And so over the last 9 weeks, we have been using our online portal to help pair those organizations with needs with those that have resources. And so I want to say a thank you. You'll see some pictures on your screen of just some of the examples of ways that partners have come together to give back during all of this. And so today we've paired more than 100 organizations together, and whether that's through financial donations or PPE or food or providing meals to the folks on the first line or on the front lines, we certainly appreciate you in helping with that. What we have learned is the needs aren't going away. You know, you think about a hurricane season, and we all know that typically it's going to last for a few days. Hurricane Harvey lasted a little longer, right, than we were anticipating. The challenging part during all of this is there's no end in sight. And unfortunately, that means we're going to have to continue to adapt to meet the needs of those folks who are struggling. And so we're so grateful for our industry partners who have stepped up during this time, like you guys always do, in providing resources to nonprofit organizations, to your Chamber of Commerce, and to your regional association, so we can continue to do what we do, advocating for our members and trying to help rebuild our economy. And so one of the initiatives that we did was Operation Stock the Shelves at the end of April. And we just yesterday had a conversation with all of our pastors in the community and our nonprofit organizations this morning. And we know that in Pasadena specifically, there are 9 food pantries, and the pantries are depleted again. And so we are doing Operation Stock the Shelves 2.0 on June 10th, because we know that the food needs are important. And it's a community-wide effort. And so you can drive through and drop off non-perishable canned goods on that day at the chamber or at any of the local churches that are participating. And it's just another way that we can come together and show our support to those families and neighbors that really have need. And so thank you. I just want to say, again, thank you to all of our industry partners and our churches that are helping make this happen. We're just trying to help be the conduit and connector of the needs and resources during this time. Like Chad mentioned, in terms of events, our events have definitely looked different right now. And so again, we're so thankful Hector and Roger for you guys to join us on webinars, although all of us would much rather be sitting in a room together, enjoying a meal together, and that's not happening. But like Chad is planning, we all have to continue to move forward. And so we have a great board of directors that has been sharing ideas and meeting weekly and visioning how we can do some of the things that we normally do. And so although we cannot be together in the same fashion, we can still be together. And so our next event is going to be on June the 3rd, and it is our Breakfast with Champions series. We started this last year, and it's where we bring in folks to really just inspire and motivate and share stories from leaders in our community. And so several of our Impact Pasadena Leadership Program mentors have participated on those panels this last year. And so we hosted our 6 high school principals last year, and backed by popular demand and request, we've invited them back. And so can you imagine the stories that they can share of how to inspire and motivate after going through much like what all of our industry and business partners go through? And so we will be joining in a drive-in breakfast event. And so Hector, it's a long way to come for breakfast, but if you're feeling the need to get out of Austin, we'd love to have you. And join us at South Main Baptist is going to be our host. So you will join. Breakfast will be delivered to your car. You'll listen through your radio, and we can wave through the cars and see each other in the parking lot. And so we invite you all to join us for that, so that we can help celebrate some heroes too during this time, and hear from our high school principals, because truly they're developing the workforce that are going to go into each of your facilities and in industry. And so we just want to help be a partner in sharing that. And so I will just say, I know we're right a little past our time, but thank you so much to Port Houston again for being our presenting sponsor for this. Thank you to ECMA and the Economic Alliance Houston Port Region for coming alongside us in this event, and Melinda for all that she's done as our chairman of the board for 2020. Nobody signs up for this in advance, and so that's for sure. I think all of our chairmen of the boards for all of our organizations, and whether you're port commissioner or on the board for TCC or ACIT, the Alliance, ECMA, they all deserve extra thank yous, because they're putting in way more hours than anybody ever has as a volunteer. And so we thank you, Melinda, and all of our volunteer leaders. And so with that, we will say we look forward to seeing everybody again soon, but I am sure we'll be on other calls. And if there's any way that we can be a resource for anyone, please don't hesitate to let us know. Hope you guys all have a great day. Thank you again to each of our panelists and speakers.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christine.
Bye.